Okay, Excellencies, esteemed members of the Diplomatic Corps, Deputy Assistant Secretary Lea Carada, distinguished delegates, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I wish to begin this presentation by taking this opportunity to express our gratitude to Ambassador Lee Sang-hwa and the Embassy of the Republic of Korea, together with the University of the Philippines Asian Center, for giving us an opportunity to present in this event on maritime connectivity and highlight this critical issue. As a maritime and archipelagic nation, the ocean is central to our national identity. It enriches our culture, provides our livelihoods, and sustains the well-being of every Filipino. In one way or another, all of us are a person at sea. Needless to say, our country is heavily reliant on the blue economy, similar to our neighbors in Southeast Asia. At the heart of our region is the South China Sea, which gives life to the Indo-Pacific region. Each year, trillions of dollars worth of global trade traverse its waters. It nourishes millions through its fisheries, connects economies, and sustains ecosystems whose riches is unmatched. Yet this lifeline is under growing threat. Illegal activities, excessive claims, overexploitation, and degradation of marine resources endanger not only the environment, but also our regional peace, stability, and prosperity. On this note, the Philippines is committed to upholding the rules-based order and ensuring the South China Sea becomes a sea of peace, stability, and prosperity. It is clear that prosperity in the marine domain emerges out of stability and security in the waterways. This is a core interest of the Philippines, especially as we continue to experience illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions in the water. We all know how approximately $3 trillion in maritime commerce passes through the South China Sea every year. Securing and stabilizing the South China Sea is only possible if there is adherence to international law, particularly the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, as clarified by the 2016 South China Sea Article Award. UNCLOS provides for the freedom of navigation and overflight, and this must be respected by all states that transit through the South China Sea, not only from the perspective of maritime security and safety, but also from the perspective of maritime prosperity as well. Prosperity also means developing and upgrading the capacity of our maritime industries and our maritime workforce to deal with emerging technologies and maritime challenges. The Philippines is looking at the role of ports, especially in the context of the blue economy policy development. Undoubtedly, the capacities of ports need to be improved to ensure the availability of adequate port reception facilities that meet the needs of users and of the environment without causing undue delay to ships. Further, the Philippines port authorities continue to work on the progress and completion of all projects, including those identified as ASEAN ports, in order to meet local and global trade and tourism demands of the future while ensuring the safety of maritime workers. On our maritime workforce, the Philippines successfully held the International Conference on Seafarers' Human Rights, Safety, and Well-being just last September in Manila. The conference issued the Manila Declaration on Seafarers' Human Rights, Safety, and Well-being as a collective call to action to strengthen international cooperation, uphold the dignity of seafarers, and ensure their protection, especially in times of crisis. It is an important milestone toward achieving human rights at sea, ensuring that seafarers everywhere are protected at all times as they undertake the essential work of keeping global trade moving, connecting nations, and sustaining the world's supply chains. On technology, we must acknowledge that critical undersea infrastructure is an important global connectivity issue, with the ASEAN benefiting on interconnectivity for undersea cables. The world is highly dependent on submarine infrastructure, not merely as conduits of communication, but are critical arteries to support digital economy. We all rely on submarine cables for points of regional and international connectivity, noting that 95% of data travels through undersea cables. The Philippines acknowledges that it will benefit from having a domestic governance framework, and a new law would be ideal. Internationally, the UNCLOS offers only limited guidance on subsea cable security. Meanwhile, the ASEAN also lacks a binding legal instrument for critical infrastructure protection. We believe that it is essential for global governance structure on undersea cables to be updated to keep up with modern times. These need to collaborate in protection of critical undersea infrastructures through technology and capacity building exchanges such as advanced subsea monitoring, autonomous underwater vehicles, and maritime surveillance. Finally, we believe that economic development must not come at the expense of countries not fulfilling their duty to protect and preserve the marine environment. In our view, prosperity and sustainability are complementary. As a maritime and archipelagic nation at the heart of the most biodiverse region in the world, the Philippines is home to rich ecosystems stretching from ridge to reef to shelf and extending to adjacent areas beyond national jurisdiction. As such, the Philippines takes marine environmental protection and sustainability very seriously. The Philippines is proud of its active advocacy to uphold the rules-based order governed by international law, especially in the marine and maritime domain. Even as the Philippines faces challenges of marine degradation brought about by climate change and man-made causes, and damage caused to the marine environment by illegal land accumulation and island building in the South China Sea and tensions in the water, our policies and actions in the maritime and marine domain have always been guided by the UNCLOS, which we firmly uphold as the legal framework governing all activities in the ocean. The Philippines believes that the rights, freedoms, and obligations of states within UNCLOS are paramount. This is why we continue to champion compliance with decisions and rulings rendered under the compulsory dispute settlements mechanisms under UNCLOS, such as the 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Award, and respect the advisory opinions that give authoritative clarity to UNCLOS provisions, such as the 2024 ITLOS Advisory Opinion on case number 31. We likewise welcome the decision of the ICJ on its advisory opinion on the obligations of states with respect to climate change. Indeed, the ITLOS Advisory Opinion on case number 31 cemented the ocean-climate biodiversity nexus and affirmed how states' responsibility go beyond the UNFCCC framework and also emerge from our obligations under UNCLOS, which undoubtedly means that the protection, conservation, and sustainable use of the ocean and its resources require the full breadth of international law. We also have to effectively implement the implementing agreements under the UNCLOS, and as we especially anticipate the upcoming entry into force of the BBNJ agreement. In line with this, we are proud to be a part of the family of nations that have ratified the agreement. Our ratification solidifies our commitment to uphold the rules-based rules-based order governed by international law, particularly UNCLOS, and to fulfill its duty to protect and preserve the marine environment, including the high seas. This agreement is especially important for us as the Philippines is adjacent to wide swaths of high seas in the Pacific and to pockets of high seas in the South China Sea, as confirmed by 2016 South China Sea Arbitral Award. We acknowledge the Republic of Korea as one of the first countries to have ratified the BBNJ agreement, and it is the first East Asian country to have done so. We believe that we can learn a lot from the Republic of Korea's perspectives on its experience with the ratification process of the BBNJ agreement, particularly the legal and institutional adjustments undertaken at the national level. We would also work together, both within the ASEAN and our dialogue partners, to find science-based, innovative approaches, as well as utilizing capacity building and technology transfer to address the problems impacting the ocean. These are all important elements in our shared efforts to preserve and conserve the marine environment. Domestically, the Philippines has made substantive efforts to address illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, especially through better monitoring, control, and surveillance frameworks to monitor Philippine flag fishing vessels operating and aligning conservation management measures to frameworks under regional fisheries management organizations. The Philippines remains deeply committed to reducing plastic pollution and the marine environment. One of our main voluntary commitments that we announced in the third UN Ocean Conference is to prevent a total of 80 million kilograms of plastic waste from reaching or be removed from the marine environment by 2030. Further to this, we look forward the Republic of Korea's hosting of the 4th United Nations Ocean Conference in 2028. The Philippines has also strengthened its institutional frameworks by creating an Ocean Environment Task Force and producing evidence and science-based policy-making processes, including enacting a new law on national capital accounting system that will also apply in the maritime domain. We have also enhanced ocean literacy efforts by helping grassroots communities become more aware of their stake in preserving the marine environment. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving substantive progress in maritime connectivity and in protecting the marine environment in the ASEAN region is fundamentally premised on 4 important points. Number 1 is adhering to international law, especially the UNCLOS, and not selectively implementing it. Number 2, strengthening multilateralism and cooperation and not weakening it. Number 3, maintaining ASEAN centrality in developing solutions for the region. And number 4, affirming the principles of equality, transparency, equity, and inclusivity in our collective work and not diminishing them. Moving forward, the Philippines will continue to work with ASEAN and its external partners to enhance maritime connectivity and to protect and sustain the marine environment by upholding international law, utilizing evidence-based policymaking, and pursuing the meaningful achievement of these goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Lopez. Now we will have the moderated discussion to be prefaced by remarks from each of our leading experts. We will begin first with Dr. Dr. SeoHee of the Ocean Security and Global and Strategy Research Division of the Korean Maritime.
Hello, I'm SeoHee from Korea Maritime Institute. My major is in international law, and now I'm working ocean security and strategy research. It is a genuine pleasure to join you here in the Philippines, one of the Indo-Pacific most strategically positioned maritime nations, where some of the world's most important sea-ranked coverage and where the future of regional maritime connectivity is already unfolding. Today, I would like to share a few thoughts on how ROK and ASEAN can cooperate more closely to strengthen marine connectivity by deepening maritime security cooperation, accelerating digital transformation, and building long-term human networks across the region. Overall, I want to emphasize that with a strong and reliable marine security, neither economic connectivity nor digital connectivity can be sustained. Security is the backbone that enables every form of cooperation to function effectively. In 2025, the KMI conducted a comprehensive study on maritime cooperation between the ROK and ASEAN. The study found that ASEAN maritime strategy is increasingly influenced by the blue economy, an ocean-centered economic model driven by digitalization, data sharing, and technology-enabled governance. Across ASEAN, several priorities continuously emerge, fostering an innovation-oriented blue economy, enhancing climate and ocean resilience, strengthening marine security, and establishing more coherent and sustainable governance structures. At the same time, our study emphasized that cooperation in the region should evolve from individual projects toward a model that strengthens connectivity and synergy. By enhancing connectivity linkages, we create a stable foundation for digital systems, AI platforms, and blue economy initiatives to function effectively. Expanding commentaries between technology, data, and policy. Such interconnected cooperation ultimately reinforces maritime security, improves marine environmental management, and promotes economic prosperity, becoming a key driver of long-term sustainability and resilience across the region. The Philippines play a pivotal role in this context as an archipelagic country with more than 7,600 islands and over 36,000 kilometers of coastline. It is situated at one of the world's most critical maritime crossroads, through which more than half of global maritime trade passes. This makes the Philippines central not only to ASEAN connectivity but also to marine connectivity, navigational safety, and the protection of vital lines of communication across the Indo-Pacific. With its youthful population, rapidly expanding digital economy, and ambitious national development agenda, the Philippines is emerging as a leader in ASEAN's digital blue economy. This momentum fosters stronger cooperation between our two countries, particularly in maritime security, digital transformation, and marine governance. The maritime partnership between ROK and the Philippines has progressed significantly since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1949, built on trust, shared values, and mutual trust. The 2024 Joint Declaration on a Comprehensive Strategic Partnership has evaluated maritime cooperation to a central pillar of this relationship. A key mechanism in this effort is the ROK Philippine Maritime Dialogue. Through this platform, we collaborate on maritime domain awareness, marine environmental protection, responses to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, blue economic development, and maintaining stability in the South China Sea. Importantly, cooperation must translate into tangible results on the ground. Over the past decades, Korea and the Philippines have built a series of successful maritime cooperation initiatives, from the vessel traffic management systems, coastal environmental monitoring, and religious programs, to smart aquaculture collaboration, and most recently, the East Asia Marine Plastic Reduction Project. Together, these represent model cases of bilateral maritime cooperation, integrating development assistance, technology transfer, governance support, and capacity building into a coherent and effective framework. Building on this experience, the ROK ASEAN Maritime Connectivity Framework derived from the 2025 Korea Maritime Institute study provides a long-term structure for regional cooperation. It promotes the digital blue economy through smarter ports, integrated logistics, maritime data platform, satellite AIS fusion, and marine renewable energy, while also enhancing ocean and climate resilience by expanding marine protected areas, supporting blue carbon projects, and restoring ecosystems. Another core element is the shared commitment to a stable, rule-based maritime model. Korea and ASEAN, including the Philippines, strongly support the principle of UNCLOS, the peaceful settlement of disputes, freedom of navigation, and transparent, predictable maritime governance. Our agenda covers a wide range of issues: AI-driven maritime domain awareness, joint responses to IU fishing, maritime cybersecurity, the protection of key infrastructure like submarine cables and cooperation on enforcement and training in line with law of the sea. Together, these efforts to reflect the simple reality: without secure, there can be no genuine digital connectivity, no sustainable blue economy, and no resilient ocean governance. All of this is supported by the final pillar: sustainable governance and financing. This involves improved coordination among government ministries, mobilization of blended financing, and the strengthening of regional networks of maritime institutions. Efforts that closely align with the Philippines National Marine and Fisheries Sustainable Development Plan and the Philippines Development Plan. Looking ahead, I would like to highlight two core agendas for ASEAN's future approach to marine connectivity. The first is digital connectivity. The comprehensive digitalization of ocean space information through real-time maritime data platforms, integrate port and shipping systems, use satellite AIS drone surveillance, and digital hydrography to support safe navigation. When fully integrated, these systems reduce the risk, deter illegal activities, and enhance real-time decision making. The second is AI connectivity, leveraging artificial intelligence to enhance faster traffic services, anticipate port congestion, automate logistics flows, monitor hazards, and improve the environmental performance of ports. AI-connected ports are not only more efficient, but also more resilient to cyber threats, operational disruptions, and climate-related shocks. Together, these two initiatives can position ASEAN at the forefront of next-generation maritime logistics and security. Of course, none of that is achievable without secure, stable, and practical seas. Maritime security underpins marine connectivity. It protects the arteries of global trade, supports reliable digital networks, and safeguards the critical infrastructures on which our economy depends. Faced with rising gray zone pressures, persistent IUU fishing, heightened cyber risks, vulnerabilities in subsea cable, and intensifying climate impacts, our shared response must include the integrated maritime domain awareness system using satellites, drones, and AI. Stronger IUU enforcement, enhanced capacity for coast guards and levies, and better protection for ports, subsea cables, and other critical infrastructure will firmly align with UNCLOS and ASEAN method mechanisms. Finally, marine connectivity is not only about infrastructure and technology. It is fundamentally about people. So I suggest the establishment of ROK ASEAN Maritime Knowledge Forum, a permanent network linking maritime think tanks, ocean research institutes, policy experts, and academic institutions across the region. Such a forum would support joint research, policy dialogue, scenario planning, and capacity building, while deepening strategic trust and ensuring that innovation and best practices circulate widely and consistently throughout our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lee, for that comprehensive strategy and assessment of connectivity issues. Now we turn to Dr. Azanza.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me to this very important forum. In the interest of time, I will not be able to give the data and information I would like to share today. And I'm very thankful that the speaker gave the more important aspects that I wanted to be highlighted. Like for example, the Philippines and many other countries in the region are archipelagic and maritime. Take for example, Indonesia and even Malaysia is quite maritime and archipelagic. And I would say Japan and Korea is quite archipelagic and maritime. And that is the reason why we have been emphasizing the growth of the so-called blue economy, and I don't want to give the explanation on what blue economy is. There are the traditional blue economy sectors like fisheries and aquaculture, blue tourism, transport, and so on. But we have the emerging areas like, for example, marine biotechnology and so many others. So I'd like to mention that the ASEAN is quite, how do you call this, aggressive in the development of a regional framework for the blue economy. And I was quite lucky that during my chairmanship of the subcommittee on marine science and technology, we were able to start the framework for the preservation and development of the marine ecosystems. So I'd like to mention that we concentrated on 3 areas, and these are the smart aquaculture and fisheries. The second area for the ASEAN is the integrated ocean monitoring, and the third area is marine ecosystem health. So the marine ecosystem health would constitute the tropical marine ecosystems very much diverse in the area. And it is the duty, the responsibility of the ASEAN in the Coral Triangle to take care of this, because this is a human, how do you call this, a duty for humanity. The diversity in this area is not only for the region, but for the rest of the globe. And let me mention, for example, that we are much aware of the needs and gaps of the region for science, technology, and innovation to be able to pursue this preservation and sustainable development of the marine environment and resources, not only for the region, but for the rest of the world. And so therefore, we would like to have, to leverage with the expertise and the infrastructure and whatever the Republic of Korea, our partners in the region, could possibly provide us. So let me go directly to what I can suggest. Okay, now I have some notes. Okay, I've been to Korea many times, but one of the most important experiences that I had was visiting the Korean Ocean Institute of Science and Technology. It was amazing, and I think the science and technology for the ocean of Korea should be shared to the rest of the region. So let me go. I need my eyeglasses so that I will not use it. Okay, so I think the Republic of Korea can help strengthen marine science research in the Philippines and the rest of the region. Not only in terms of training, I was so happy that the previous forum mentioned the AI governance and development, and you mentioned digitalization. They are very important in marine science research and development, sustainable development. Like for example, marine genetic resources. These are the genetic resources in the ocean, from the coast to the deeper parts of the ocean, not only in the Philippines, but also in Korea. This is in support of the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, as what our speaker has mentioned, the BBNJ of the UNCLOS. So we can have potential co-development of these values from selected marine genetic resources. So the monitoring and the studies of the MGRs in the area, you have the capacity. The AI can help us. The digitalization of all the other aspects of the studies of the MGRs. And then also, from the first session up to now, we have mentioned the detection and management of ocean hazards and risk, like for example, oil spills, climate change impacts, like sea temperature rise, sea level rise, ocean acidification, and then harmful algal blooms, the fish kills, and the health hazards from the sea. So not only from forecasting, but also foresight. We need to go beyond our own space and our own time. We need to foresee what can happen. What can happen? Like for example, we were caught by the COVID. Okay? So we need forecasting and foresighting. Okay? And then I noticed that the Korean Ocean Institute of Science and Technology has this project, Marine Space Management. And at the UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, we call this Marine Spatial Planning. Marine Space Planning. The COIST, your agency, is for integrated management of marine space, which is good. This is for the integrated management of our marine bioresources as well as key mineral resources. Meaning the resources, the mineral resources that we need now, but what will happen in the future when we overuse these key mineral resources to the point that we destroy the bioresources. So it's going to be a decision based on science, technology, and innovation. And then we could have the co-development of unmanned device for monitoring and management, not only of these MGRs, but the other key mineral resources that I have mentioned. So therefore, just like your ocean science, Korean Institute of Science and Technology, we want to have a sustainable development of our living and non-living resources for now and the future use of the region and the rest of humanity. Thank you very much. I'd like to have more discussion on this in case.
Thank you very much, Dr. Azanza. Now we go to Mr. Rafitrandi of CSIS Channel.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. Very glad to be here. Last time I was here, I was actually attended the Maritime Forum a couple of months ago, so I resonate some of the insights from Director Lopez and how important peace and security, especially in South China Sea, for Philippines and Philippines. I think the first, I have 4 points. I hope to make it quite briefly. Then I'll go through one by one. My first point is that maritime connectivity is now more important than ever. Obviously, I can attest to Professor Azanza that Indonesia is also the same because we're an archipelago country. We share mutual experience. And maritime nations trade costs more in nature. So in the sense of between, for example, Indonesia and Philippines, we might feel sort of like high logistic costs across the nations, which is translated to price differences between regions, for example. So this is not only about international relations and security, but it's also about the people, right? For example, one of the research actually showed that 1% increase in distance in maritime actually translates to increase in price of televisions 4 times more than the land transport. So this is why I think trade facilitation, which is also related to maritime connectivity, is very, very important, especially for a country like Indonesia and Philippines. Based on the OECD trade facilitation indicators released this year, I think Philippines performed quite well. It's actually the third place after Laos and Cambodia in terms of the index. So because the increasing, if we're talking about trade facilitation, we're talking about how a country will acquire to have more efficiency and simplify and streamline custom border, for example. And this is actually related to the country's competitiveness and economic growth. For example, in the last decade, more simplified and more streamlined custom procedures actually reduced 5% of costs in terms of transportation and logistics. So this is also very important, especially when we're talking about small and medium enterprises, which is I'm really happy that this is actually one of the priority sectors that the Philippines Chairmanship will be elaborate more next year. So that's my first point. And the second point is that we have to acknowledge that we are not trade in the traditional time. We're trade what I call trade in tensions, because obviously there's geopolitical tensions, geoeconomic tensions that have been rolled towards our world right now. I think a couple of presenters also talking about the Trump tariff. And I think it is very important because most of the trade go through the sea. So obviously, it's very important to have maritime connectivity. In our report, the CSIS, we have a report last year. We just released a report on Indonesia's economic dependencies. This is, I just want to share, this might also resonate with Philippines, but we identified several scenarios and sectors that are actually making our economy more dependent toward external factors. And we also built several scenarios and based on some of geopolitical events that might likely to happen. And of course, the Soch and Sea has been mentioned a couple of times. And this is very important because it translates to potential high inflation, and inflation is not good, obviously, for a country, especially in terms of food and energy sectors. So this is why Indonesia over and over again emphasized that these two sectors should be our interest in terms of economic security. So yeah, that's probably one of the sectors that might want to explore in Philippine Chairmanship also in the next year. Not only but because of the economic implication, but obviously inflation and financial sector crisis can lead to political dynamics and instability. So this is actually what happened in Indonesia and the past experiences of economic crisis. So this will be very important for our country. And ASEAN already have some platforms. Maybe it's good to have some lesson learned. So because, for example, we have the ASEAN outlook for Indo-Pacific. So I think due to the geopolitical tensions, it's good to have some of lesson learned that AOIP was made actually back in 2019, but it was just recently operationalized. Maybe you have some experience before that. Many countries have actually Indo-Pacific outlook, vision, or some documents, quote unquote, to securitize the Indo-Pacific area. But ASEAN instead tried to securitize it by having this ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific. So I think this is the way that ASEAN should engage in terms of other parties or external parties try to securitize our region. So that's probably one of the lessons learned that ASEAN can have. My third point is, of course, geopolitical tensions are there, geoeconomic tensions are there, but we also need to remind ourselves that we are in the climate crisis. So this is also very important for maritime connectivity. Obviously, because the maritime and maritime infrastructure is very sensitive and it's critical for trade and also economy. Based on Port Watch, which is actually a very good platform, and I really encourage all of you to look at it. It's a data provided by the IMF and Oxford University. It's actually gave you some of the simulations on how big is actually the physical damage of a country if something happened, climate risk or climate damage happen. And unsurprisingly, ASEAN is quite sensitive towards climate risk, obviously flooding, cyclones, earthquakes. But
Mr. Rafitrandi,
sorry.
sorry, the organizers are reminding us to.
Right. Okay. I'm just gonna get to my point, but especially for Philippines, Manila, Batangas City, Subic Bay, it's actually accumulated for $100 million physical damage per year, and it's the highest among ASEAN countries. So if we're talking about maritime connectivity and also climate change, this also be one of the most concerning sectors, I must say. My last point will be way forward. How we reduce these external shocks is first we have to do domestic reform, and the second one, ASEAN should have a more coordinated responses. The first sub-point is the ASEAN Geo-Economic Task Force that we already have. The previous presenter already mentioned. This is very good for the cross-pillar issues, and also therefore might want to have more maritime connectivity issues in there. And the second one is how to expand the ASEAN single window. We know we already have authorized economic operator, but only for several ASEAN countries. And I think South Korea can help in terms of technical cooperation on this. And this is also very important, but it's very sensitive. It's about the illegal transshipment that it's been going on because of the US tariffs, but we can talk about that later on. And the third one, and finally, is how we can engage with the elephant in the room, which we have the RCEP. That's why I think it's also very important. And we have the political from the leadership. I think it's already good, and I think there's an idea to put the blue economy issues also in the RCEP, which we will be reviewed in 2027. And that should be my brief. Thank you so much.
Very much, Mr. Rafitrandi. We are honored. We are very fortunate that the organizers have put together a wide range of expertise and experience in this panel. We've heard a policy perspective, a comprehensive strategy perspective, a comprehensive science and technology perspective, as well as an economy perspective that mentioned, among others, RCEP, which includes, of course, customs facilitation as one of the processes. Now, unfortunately, we are running out of time, so I will have to ask only one question. I'm sorry, unfortunately, for everyone. Now, we have seen a large range of, number one, you mentioned a large range of circumstances and challenges and threats, but also opportunities that we may look at moving forward. Now, however, I need to ask, we need to distinguish, of course, between the short-term problems and issues that we need to deal with now, as well as the long-term ones for which we need to build the structures moving forward. So if you were asked to choose which short-term response, which response to a short-term issue would you prioritize, and which long-term response to changes and circumstances in emerging technological trends would you recommend moving forward on maritime connectivity? And by maritime connectivity, I would like to include as well Repalian connectivity. Because ASEAN is not only limited to Nusantara and Archipelago, but it also includes, for example, the CLMV countries, which have the Mekong River connectivity, for example, as one of their issues as well. So short term, which is the most important short-term response, and which is the most important long-term response that you would push forward for ASEAN. Long-term, of course, given the mega trends, which would be the appropriate response. We will do it in reverse order. So first, Ms. Alfifa.
Yeah, well, you put me in quite difficult, but I try to reiterate my point in terms of if you're talking about short term and long term, I think it's a good way to have perspective and both sides. I think that the short term will be, I think, cooperation in terms of ASEAN single window should be should be improved. Because obviously, when we're talking about ASEAN, we also know you mentioned about CML country, and also we have this Timor-Leste. So I think it's very important to bring all countries together and then have more connected in terms of the single windows, an authorized economic operator (AEO), which is only implemented by several countries, but also most importantly to expand this single window to other members. I mean, other dialogue partners, for example, Korea and Japan and China. I think this is also very good framework in the short term, and it's doable. And for long-term one, I think I want to go with the climate resilience type of thing. I think when I talk to you about how important to interpret the climate risk towards the maritime connectivity, which can also translate to more inflation and price dynamics, which we don't want to happen, right? But it takes a while, and I think South Korea is the best place to learn about the port and also connectivity resilience. And I think there's quite a lot of some of projects to address that issue.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now we turn to Dr. Azanza.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question. Actually, the reality is that ASEAN is more, the communities are not that rich. The communities are not that rich. So when we talk about sustainable cities, we need to expand it to have sustainable cities and communities. So I'd like to imagine that science, technology, and innovation, as what we have now, be considering the inclusivity that we want to have, that we want to develop in the ASEAN region. If digitalization, if AI can help these communities, that for me is a short-term approach. And then the long-term, of course, would be to tackle all the other hazards and risks that we can
Which would be number one? Which is the number one step long term? I mean, there's so many. We have
For
so many
hazards and risks?
Yes, for ASEAN is an ASEAN plus one.
Geopolitics.
Geopolitics.
Okay. I need that next one.
Okay, need that next one.
Because,
We all
it's not only this is South China, so you have all the other areas for geopolitics consideration. And we discussed these at the ASEAN.
I find it very interesting that our economy person focus on climate change, our scientists focus on geopolitics, long-term risk, and you can see how therefore how multivalent our problems are.
Yeah.
And now, ma'am, maybe.
The long-term priority for cooperation is establishing digital connectivity grounded in Lopez and Maritime security. And also the short-term priority for cooperation, we should focus on the MTA, maritime domain awareness, and illegal IUU fishing and cybersecurity. And as I said, I suppose the establishing of ROK ASEAN Maritime Knowledge Forum. Because the previous cooperation has focused on issues specific or add-on networks. That this kind of knowledge forum aims to operate as a permanent, multi-layered knowledge and strategy platform, integrating joint research, policy dialogue, scenario planning, and compensation.
Thank you very much. Director Lopez. Short term, long term. What can we as an ASEAN plus one group here work with? Which should we focus on first? Number one, short term, one long term.
Alright, hello. Okay, so So, well, I would think short term is part of our ASEAN goals is to complete the COC negotiations by next year, right? It's one of the aims of the ASEAN Chairmanship. So I would think, you know, other a lot of people say geopolitics, but I would say as a long term, but I guess it's as a short term goal, you know, is to first actually complete the COC negotiations, because we would want an atmosphere, you know, an environment that will be conducive for our long-term growth. So, for example, our aims in the marine environment, right? Our aims in the economy, digital connectivity will be much better. We'll have a much better environment to grow in, you know, if we were able to settle the maritime safety freedom navigation. Well, I guess the code of conduct. Thank you.
Long term.
Long term, I would think, you know, we would want to improve maritime domain awareness, right? We can also target BPNJ cooperation. I guess it's a long term, because as we can see now, it's still currently in. You know, we're still aligning our national legislations on it. We're trying to implement it domestically. No, we're trying to compete. We're anticipating the first conference of parties next year. No? So I guess that would be a good long-term goal, no? to cooperate, no? In the management of the high seas areas in our region.
Thank you very much. Now, to very briefly summarize, we note several things from this panel, but also from the previous panels. Number one, there is a broad agreement as to the challenges we face, both in the long term and the short term. There is a broad agreement that we need to respond to them, not as individual country problems, but as collective action problems that ASEAN needs to work on together, but also ASEAN needs to work on together with partners such as Korea, which have both the will and the willingness to help in working on this together. So the next step is then really deciding what to do next. In the short term, to deal with the issues, for example, of emergence of new technologies and economic challenges, and in the long term, to build the institutions and structures that will allow us to, number one, assess the problem, hence the need for a framework for study. Number two, to decide together on the problem. And number three, to marshal our resources together to solve those issues and deal with those challenges. So this concludes our panel. Thank you all very much.